Up Your Game with CMO Coaches is for current and aspiring chief marketing officers. Each episode will feature one of our experienced CMO coaches focusing on a topic that they are passionate about to help you up your game. Welcome to Up Your Game in the Language of Business. Today we have Mike Linton. Mike is the CMO coach with CMO Coaches, currently the host of CMO Confidential, a weekly podcast on I Hear Everything Network. Mike has held numerous marketing, general management, and board of director positions throughout his career. Most recently, he served as Ancestry's chief revenue officer. Prior to that, he served for 8 years as the CMO of Farmers Insurance. He's also served as CMO of eBay and at Best Buy's first ever CMO. Under Mike's tenure, the team launched Reward Zone loyalty program, expanded Geek Squad nationally. Earlier in his career, he's worked for Procter & Gamble in brand management and James River and Progressive Insurance in both marketing and general management. Mike is currently on the board of directors of Allworth Financial and consults and advises both established and early stage companies. He's previously served on the boards of Pete's Coffee and Tea, Allen Edmonds Shoes, which I like wearing, by the way.
Thank you.
The Wine Group, Medical Solutions, Loan Depot, Support.com, Evolution Robotics, and Capella Education. Welcome to Up Your Game with CMO Coaches, Mike.
Thanks for having me, Alan. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Well, today's conversation, we're going to delve into the critical intersection of marketing and finance. We've exploring why understanding the language of business, particularly finance, is essential for every marketer and CMO. In an era where every data-driven decision-making and ROI are paramount, marketers who speak the language of finance can bridge the gap between marketing strategy and financial performance. This isn't just about budgeting. It's about unlocking new insights, driving more impact, and ultimately connecting more effectively to your organization's bottom line. Mike, why should marketers learn finance and speak financially?
Look, here's what I think. If you think, what is the universal language of business? It is finance. And that language goes across countries, it goes across industries, it's in B2B, it's in B2C, it's everywhere. So the idea that you are not going to speak the universal language of business to me is an immediate non-starter. And you should actually go run and embrace this, because that is behind the entire capital engine. And it isn't really anything about budget meetings. It's about outcomes and investors for me. And it's about capital flows and marketers understanding capital flows and also outcomes and and the arbiter of what people will pay for your company. And I think the idea that you should be talking marketing while everyone around you in the whole world is talking about finance when the rubber meets the road and investors care about finance, that's an argument. It's not even worth making.
Well, as you think about the CMO role, how does that translate to the CMO role?
So look, you have a couple jobs as CMO, but what I would say is, your job is to make a sales overnight, brand over time, which is build the business today and set it up so that it will win tomorrow. And you have a lot of things to do there. You're given a pile of money. You have to make the right short and long-term investment decisions, and then you have to help the company see what's going on in the marketplace. So it's product development, it's service development, how it's customer service. Everything is thought through so that you are winning with the customer, because that's actually who gives you the money. But I think the idea that marketers are special, or that marketing is a special thing that should be talked about in a special language, is deeply flawed, because investors don't really care about that unless it is producing a financial outcome. So as CMO, I've always encouraged my team, and I think like an investor and think like a CFO, because that is where the company, whether it's private equity, venture, or public, where you actually have a stock price that you get to score every day, where that score is kept. And while the marketing measures are super important, if they're not translating into financial measures, no one really cares in the long run. And I think your job is to take all the cool stuff you're doing in marketing and all the strategies you are developing and what you are learning about the marketplace and customers, and translate that for the company and ideally the CFO, the investors, and anybody that follows, the stock or in some instances, your PE owners, so that they don't have to work through what you're trying to say.
Right.
And I'll give you an example. You don't really care about probably reverse logistics or the store labor model at a retail store, or how many turns, like, or all the rules for logistics, or how companies source where they're going to build a building. You don't really care. I mean,
Right.
It might be interesting to you, but when someone explains that to you, you're not thinking that, you're not riveted by that. But when someone says, hey, I'm going to make you 10% on your money because we're doing this and here's the strategy, you pay a lot of attention. Your job as a marketer is to take what you're doing and translate it for the CFO. And if you think like a CFO, you're sitting there as a CFO and you have to translate all this stuff for your investors. And if you're in a public company, all the analysts. And you don't want to have the HR numbers, the operations numbers, the IT numbers, the marketing numbers, all those other numbers coming into you in some kind of foreign language where someone asks you a question and you go, I can't tie any of that to outcomes, financial outcomes. So as a marketer, if you think like an analyst, think like a CFO, think like an investor, you will do a much better job translating and stop acting like your measures are super special. They may be special to you, but if they're not producing the financial outcomes, they're not going to be that special for very long. And if you're the CFO, you can't go in and go, our marketing is really great and we want to share all of our marketing data with you, even though we missed the quarter from both a profit and a sales standpoint. It's not going to work.
Right. Well, I know you say we're not special, and I kind of beg to differ, Mike. I mean, you're very special. I think I'm special.
I feel very special just for being on this interview with you, Alan.
I know. I think we're both special. But
there we go.
I mean, if you think about it, I get we've got to talk the finance language. But don't we need a bit more than just the cold financials? Or you're saying no, just the cold financials?
I think you need to do it all. You need to be able to run your team off the marketing measures.
Gotcha.
And you need to be able to understand all the marketing measures. And look, you can have 100 spreadsheets. And that's all. If you need that to run marketing, that's great. What I'm saying is don't throw all that up on the table for the CFO and the investors and expect them to actually want to wade through it. And I do think, I think marketing is special because it does have a couple of roles that are very unique in the company. It is usually the interface between the company and the marketplace, and the company and the customer and the technology. And so it is on the front end of all that, and it needs to be able to deliver the company to the marketplace and also go back and report what the marketplace is saying. It has a very big vested interest in being very objective about that and having a lot of data to support it, not just its own judgment. But then it has to turn that into creative selling, creative marketing, pricing strategies, all kinds of things like, create loyalty programs, whatever, campaigns, whatever you want to do, that drive the business. So it's special in that way. But I will also say there's very few functions in a company that think they are not special. And I think marketers do themselves an incredible disservice by running around acting like they are some special thing, even though they are, because it makes other functions look at them and go, oh, they get to do all this cool stuff anyways. And they are spending usually a boatload of money that we can all see how they're spending it. I'm not going to want to play with them. And my thing is, don't do that. Translate it for the company. Let the company understand what you're doing. Listen to everybody, but don't let them vote. And then run this, but turn it into the company outcomes. If you come into all hands and you say, let me share our top 35 marketing measures with you, the team won't get anything out of it. If you say, look, here's sales and what we did to drive sales, and here's profit, what we did to drive profit, and here's what we're going to do next quarter or next year, and here's how you can help us, you'll have a lot more people paying attention.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I know I've heard about you is that you've always had a marketing CFO. I want to know, tell me what that role looks like. What does that role do?
So I don't know if I created this role or not. I mean, for purpose of this podcast, I think I will say I don't know anybody that did it before me. But so, in a lot of my positions, I was responsible for a lot of spending and a lot of outcomes. And when you think about what you have to do as a CMO, you have a boatload of money and you have more ideas than you have people, money, or time. You have to allocate those ideas where they do the most good for the company and the consumer, not for the individual department with the money.
Hmm.
So what I use the marketing CFO for is multi-purpose. One, they sit on top of all the money. And it allows them to trade the money and move it where it does the most good for the company. Instead of having each function argue amongst itself, they have a central place. Two, it serves as kind of a litmus test where I can say, Alan, if you cannot convince the marketing CFO who's on our staff and knows everything we are doing that this is a good idea, the chance of it working in the marketplace is probably pretty small. Three, it allows the team to learn finance from the marketing CFO, but also get heads up of like, look, Q3, we're going to be killing it. So we're probably going to have extra money. Start thinking about it now. Or we're having a tough quarter and next quarter, we're going to be looking for money. Let's start thinking about what we're going to cut now versus having this giant bridge. So there's outcomes, training, and communication that help. And I think the other thing that helps is I use the marketing CFO as kind of a trading desk for money. Like I don't want each function trying to spend all its money because you do this budget thing at the beginning of the year and I say, Alan, you get $50 million to buy for CRM or performance marketing. And if that's going really great and you want more money, I want you to get it.
Right.
Because something in the group isn't doing that great. But I don't want you to have to go and ask and beat people. And I'm going to also use the marketing CFO and HR to actually pay you differently, which is we are going to be paid on how we do overall more primarily than just you, if you're on my officer team. And then the marketing CFO does that. And the last thing the marketing CFO does that is really helpful is they go sell what marketing is doing to the finance team and the investor relations team in advance. So there's a general better information flow there. And this is usually a great job for anybody in finance. They're getting to talk about, they get to see all the marketing stuff. There's usually all kinds of there's all the spending, which will be, just general marketing spend, advertising, there's contracts, there could be sponsorships. There's tons of money flowing through here, and learning to evaluate all that and look at the contracts, that is a cool thing.
Well, it's definitely a cool job. I mean,
it's a great job. In the right company, it is a great job.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and how does that, so you've got this arbiter, if you will, of your spend and making sure that the spend is being allocated to the highest return or places of highest return. How does that trickle down to expectations for your team members, your external agency partners? How do you think about setting the right tone with them on the business aspect of things?
I'll tell you what I try and do, and it's not easy in marketing because marketing is unique, as you pointed out, is it's the most heterogeneous function in the company. Like if you're sitting there and you got performance marketing, and then you have it's called brand, and then you have sponsorships, and you might have customer experience, you might have the call centers, you might have an internal agency. They are all different. They're operating off of different, market research. They're operating off of different metrics. If I have 10 manufacturing plants, they usually have some similar things. A lot of the functions have similarities. Marketing is usually the most heterogeneous function. I though want the marketing department thinking about the customer and the marketplace more than their individual function. And so I will set measures that, and what the company cares about, which is sales profits today and tomorrow.
Right.
I mean, all the other stuff is the means to an end. So we are going to use the marketing CFO to first set those goals and explain why they're important, and then try and link all those departments to those goals. And it's very rare one department can drive the entire company by itself, though when you talk to many of them, they think they do. The marketing CFO gets used for that. And then I will roll the agencies and outside suppliers into this story, which is I want them to understand how we make money, how the financials work, and their role in that story. So they are not coming up and not understanding problems. If I worked in an insurance company for 8 years, sometimes you have a bad year. You could have a hurricane and a fire in a 2-month period, and that could wipe out a lot of your money. You don't want your agency not understanding that and beating on people for let's do something like creative, crazy. You want them actually understanding the whole thing and saying, all right, I know it looks like a tough quarter. Here's what we can do in media if you need cash. But I expect you as an agency to know how we make money. You can come to the all hands and this, we'll do business reviews and other stuff where you can come to. But if you're poaching for business, you're out. And if you do not understand the business, if you're just in there selling, I don't have any use for you. You have to understand this. And then you have to write your job into the business story, into the marketing story, then into the business story. And that allows you to keep coming to everything and to do usually some pretty cool work. We did some, in a lot of my companies, we've done some pretty cool work.
That's awesome. Well, if you think about, you've done a lot over the course of your career. Is there an example from one of the stops that you've had along the way that kind of brings all of this notion together, this notion of integrating finance and marketing?
I guess there's a couple, but first I would say probably in my career, and if you're really old, you can have a good career. So I guess that's what happened. But 14 of my team have gone on to be CMOs and, somewhere.
That's an amazing stat.
And my Best Buy lead team was, I think 5 of them went on to be CMOs. And they stayed together for quite a number of years. That was a team that put out a lot of creative stuff and analytical stuff that was great. And I think one of the reasons, some of those people went on to be CMOs is they understood business, not just marketing. And they understood that their team the company was their team. It wasn't marketing was their team. And they could bridge the gap between running marketing and contributing to the company. I guess there's a couple stories I could say. Probably the most logical one is, we created Reward Zone at Best Buy, which was, I think, the first loyalty program in retail. It was very complicated. We tested it for a whole year to make sure it wouldn't gum up operations, to see what it would do. We were charging money for the card. We had finance riding with us the whole way. We finally got agreement to expand this nationally. And when we came up with this idea, it was not immediately embraced as a genius idea. It was like, oh my God, it's going to complicate everything. And then when we rolled it out, we had tested this thing 8 ways to Sunday. We knew everything that was going to work. And we had put in what we thought was a relatively conservative forecast. But everyone thought it was still, it was going to be hard to achieve. When we rolled this thing out, though, it was a surprise because it exceeded our wildest expectations instantly. Where I got a call from the CIO. He was in a store and he said, "Hey, Mike, and I'm charging $10 for the card." So I'm thinking this is, no one's going to, he goes, "Hey, I'm in Boston and I'm in a store and we're running out of cards. This thing is attaching to 25% of the sales of the company." Wow. And I say, first I think I am an idiot because card carrying costs are almost zero. I should have as many cards as I want, but we didn't even think that this could go wrong that way. But then I walk immediately down to the CFO's office and say, "Hey, this is going to hit the balance sheet like a ton of bricks because it's, we are going to accrue the points and then they're not going to be redeemed in terms of sales, but they're going to be hanging out as a liability." And so it's not going to, and by the way, set me up for the audit committee meeting as soon as you can, because they're going to want to talk about this.
Yeah.
And the finance team was very supportive of this. We also had set up a research component where we had perfect pairs, meaning Alan had bought a washer and then a TV and then 6 CDs or whatever, and then this. And Mike had bought the exact same thing. And one of us was in reward zone and one of us was not. So we could watch this thing trickle up. All that said, you had to go in front of audit and say, hey, look at what happened to the balance sheet. But we're pretty sure it's going to work and it's going to come back and it's going to work. And I think without finance's support, it would have been a lot tougher audit meeting. And then a year later, we were able to say, look, this thing works. Like it's a monstrous competitive edge. Right. It goes out, if you have the card, you come back more often and you buy more stuff than if you don't have the card. And we're the only one that has this in our business.
I love
but
it.
Without IT, finance, ops, retail stores, it would have never got done and it would have never got finished. And it will also say, when we finally presented it to the analysts, we didn't present it as a marketing thing. We presented it as a sales and profit thing.
I love that.
A year later, we got to present it to the analysts as a pretty cool thing. But it was not one of those things where, it worked like we thought, but not in any way did it unfold like we thought it would unfold.
Right.
So it was also a really good learning to, you think you planned for everything, but you really didn't.
Well, I love that story, in part because of how you went into the CFO's office and was like, this is going to hit the balance sheet like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
Just being able to translate the marketing program into the effects of the financial statements, and then being able to get ahead of that, to your point, like we got to get in front of the audit committee so they understand what's coming. And later reaping the benefits that you're talking about from the marketing, because it takes time for a big loyalty program like that to pay out.
It really does. So
yeah, that's a
we
great
had a 60-day turn on the redemption. So within a quarter you could start predicting, and we have a ton of math that here's what we think it's going to do. I'll tell you one other story, which is I was at Farmers and we got offered a bunch of money to try and drive sales. And we went back and looked at it and came back to the company and said, we don't want the money. We can't drive the sales you want at the ROI we think is fair. And we would either keep this money and give it to something else in the company or not. If you want us to spend it, this is what we can do with it, but we can't do what you hope we can do with the money. This kind of thing to me is what marketers should be doing, which is, it's not your job to get as much money as possible or to, have marketing win. It's your job to make the company win. And sometimes marketing isn't the lever that makes the company win. Right. And being aware of that, I think, makes you a way better CMO. But I also think the ability to think about financially anything that you do, including if I do something and it's going to cost a bunch of calls to come to the call center, what does that cost? Right. Versus saying, oh my God, I never had any idea this was going to cost so much in the call center. That kind of thinking is why I think you need to understand finance more than just be able to read it. You need to be able to understand it. And even better, you need to be able to communicate your impact on it. And that, I think, will make you a lot more successful as a CMO.
Well, we've covered a lot. I appreciate the stories. We've covered a lot today. Like, if there's one thing that you want folks watching this, listening to this, to come away with or think about, what would that one thing be?
Gosh, one thing. All right, I will say, and I'll stay on this theme, but I'll flip the top line a little bit. Is the CMO job in particular? It's 90% C, 10% M. And because your job is to make marketing work for the company, not to just do marketing. And you're going to have all these people that do great marketing. Your ability to understand how the company runs and how the financials run through the company allows you to be a way better C. And if you can just do marketing, that gets you in the room. It doesn't really keep you there. But if you can understand how marketing drives the business, that's what makes you, I think, the best CMO you could be. So that's my little one thing.
I love it. Well, Mike, it's been a great time having you on Up Your Game with CMO Coaches. Thanks for coming on.
It was great to be here. And by the way, your background is spectacular. I love what you've done with it.
I'm trying to blend into the wall.
Yeah, I mean, you got the black shirt and the beige background. It's like, oh my God. It's like just, I don't even know what to say, Alan. I want to send you a picture or something.
Well, I gotta get some posters like you've got.
There you
go. I gotta get some posters. Thanks again.
All right.
This episode of Up Your Game is brought to you by CMO Coaches. If you want to work with a coach, visit cmocoaches.com. This episode is brought to you in collaboration with Club CMO. Club CMO is an exclusive member organization that brings together chief marketing officers and other senior marketing executives for networking, knowledge sharing, and professional development. Through a peer-led, no-selling environment, the club provides exclusive access for marketing leaders to connect, exchange ideas, and stay up to date on industry trends and everyday challenges. This content was produced by Sam Robertson.